Hi guys, I'm Willis and today I would like to talk about Chinese. Ever since gold was discovered in California at Sutter's Mill on January 24th, 1848, it has attracted thousands of Americans from the East. By the following year, people were coming to California from all over the world, hoping to make a fortune. Many of them have never heard of the country before. At that time, people in southeastern China were suffering from the effects of war, famine, and a poor economy. Many Chinese men moved to the United States as a result, wanting to leave the chaos behind and to try their luck in the California gold rush. They hoped to find great wealth and return to China. Between 1849 and 1853, about 24,000 young Chinese men emigrated to California. Even though most Chinese translations of American regions are phonetic in Chinese, they have come up with a very unique name for California that stands out from the others. In Mandarin, it's called Jinjinshan or Zhoujinshan, and in Cantonese, people call it Gamshan. But it means pretty much the same thing, Gold Mountain. It's obvious that California sounded like paradise to the Chinese. They were told, "You will have great pay, large houses, food, and clothing of the finest description. Money is in great plenty." That year, 1 out of 10 Californians was Chinese. The first Transcontinental Railroad of the United States was constructed between 1863 and 1869. At that time, it was considered as one of the most ambitious engineering projects of the United States. The railroad paved the path for Western migration by cutting the time it took to cross the continent from months to days. The tracks for the western section of the railroad were laid by about 15,000 to 20,000 Chinese migrants, which most people were unaware of. Most of them were young single men who came from Pearl River Delta region of southern China's Guangdong province. The area, which is near Hong Kong, was the front line of 2 opium wars that England fought with China and was further disrupted by ethnic fighting. Many young men came to the United States in search for a new life. Contrary to what has previously believed, many of the Chinese workers were literate and well organized. The Chinese workers built the railroad in dangerous and harsh working conditions. They pounded on solid rock from sunrise to sunset, hung off steep mountain cliffs in woven reed baskets, and withstood the harshest winter on record in the Sierra Nevada. Even worse, their work often involves placing explosives to clear a path through the granite. Despite that it was an extremely hard job, the Chinese workers were paid significantly less than white workers, and thousands of them lost their lives during the process. Even though their history has never been told, they have played an important role in American history, and without them, the construction of the railroad would not be possible. Unfortunately, the names of the brave Chinese workers were not recorded, except for the 3 who placed the last rails in place: Jin Kui, Wang Crook, and Li Shao. The hard-working Chinese settlers were welcome when they first arrived in California. An early immigrant named Lao Chen observed that they were received as guests and greeted with favor. In 1852, they were praised as one of the most worthy classes of our newly adopted citizens by the governor of California. However, as gold mining became more challenging, Americans' attitude towards Chinese immigrants began to change. They realized that they had to compete for the limited gold, so they started to hate immigrants. A child miner complained, "The Yankee regarded every man but an American as an interloper who had no right to come to California and pick up the gold." They called on the government to drive immigrants out of the goldfield. In 1852, the state legislature passed a law requiring foreign miners to pay a high monthly fee for a license to mine. Most of the immigrants ran after tax collectors arrived in the camps. However, the Chinese stayed and paid the taxes. When the miners' taxes failed to drive off the Chinese, Americans tried to force them into leaving by hacking off the long queues and burning the shacks of Chinese miners. The Chinese got beaten up by the Americans afterwards, and the government offered no protection at all. In the 1870s, the nation experienced a severe economic downturn, and job opportunities became very scarce. Americans suffered greatly from unemployment, and the hostile attitude towards the Chinese American workers only increased over the years. By 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, virtually banning all Chinese from immigrating into the United States. It was only when China became America's ally in World War II in 1993 that Congress finally repealed the Chinese Exclusion Act. But even then, only a mere 105 Chinese per year were allowed to immigrate to the United States. In 1965, all restrictions were finally lifted, and the Chinese could move to America again. Even though most Chinese men planned to return to China after they found the gold in California, most of them settled down in the United States. Despite the never-ending prejudice against them, their hard work, energy, and skills greatly benefited California and other Western states. Like I mentioned before, it was the Chinese who built the Transcontinental Railroad. In mining, farming, in factories, and in the labor generally of California, observed a writer in 1876. The employment of the Chinese has been found most desirable. The Chinese not only helped to build the West, but they also made it a more desirable place to live. The Chinese immigrants also brought with them the unique costumes and traditions from their culture. The first Chinatown started appearing as far back as 1900s. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and listening. See you next time. I won't see you again. Goodbye.